Die 20. Tag von Adar ist gewesen eine kalte Nacht. Die Maral hat nicht gesagt, dass Sachwegen was es sein. Nur darf unsere Hilfe. Ich hab nicht gekannt, ihm entgegen sagen. Wir haben gegangen durch die Wald für eine lange Zeit, mit bloß die Licht von Vogel uns zu führen. Es ist nicht gewesen die Zeit, denn wir haben der Griechen die Klärungsplatz, als ich hab gewissen, was wir werden tun.
Consciousness is a term that biologists and psychologists have been trying to define for years and years and years, and we've never come up with a satisfactory definition.
We have finely sectioned human brains. We have cut them up and looked at every little part of them. We have studied them with CAT scanners, we've studied them with MRIs, and we still don't know where we are.
What constitutes a human being and separates a human being from, let's say, the plant or the animal kingdom, because we all have souls, is language.
What does it feel like? What does it look like? What does it sound like? And so consciousness, in that sense, would be just that qualitative aspect of experience in itself.
And the story of God's creation of man is very interesting because it's actually a golem story. There's, let's say, at least two versions of creation within Genesis. So one of them is that Adam is created and then Eve is taken from the rib or constructed from the rib of Adam. That's the one that's known more in modern Western civilization. The other one, though, is a golem story, which is very fascinating. It says that God takes unformed matter, vayipach be'apav, nishmat kol chai, that God breathes life into unformed matter and allows that vitality to enter into it. The difference is that according to that story and its interpretation from the mystical perspective is that God is able to imbue that unformed matter with these different levels of the soul. The human being, even at a very high spiritual level of cultivation, is only able to imbue it with vitality.
Arrangingen die Erde mit seinen Stecken. Die Maharal hat gemacht a Figur von einem Mann in die Blatte. Kilten haben gekommen zu meinen Rockben, wenn ich hab verstellt, die Figur sprotzen zu leben. Hat geendigt und ist gekommen nun zu mir. Gottes Name, hat gesagt, ist die Gehimmisch von Schufan. Ich hab bedürfen, zu herumringen die Erde und die Klammern in seinen Namen.
Human consciousness is unique in the level of awareness, in the way that the human being can step out of himself or herself and watch themselves actually acting in a certain way, the way they can take their thoughts and think about their thinking, the way that they can analyze what parts go into their thinking, what factors they're using in thinking. To our knowledge, there's no other creature on the face of the earth that's capable of doing that sort of thing.
I believe that the consciousness that we have is an emergent property of the complex organization of information in our brains. That there was a threshold reached, there was enough interconnections between ideas and stored bits of data that something that transcended all of that emerged. I don't think it's an innate property of protoplasm in cells or some special side benefit of DNA. It just happened that that's the material from which our brains happen to be made.
Some people even think that consciousness requires the capacity for linguistic expression, that you can't be conscious without language. Now that, I think, is probably going a bit far. That would draw the line between us and dogs or even apes. Most people now think that that's really just too implausible. But, you know, it's all extremely speculative, because until you can ask someone, you don't really know.
This ultimate creator creates existence, and we could argue consciousness, through language. Not just through language, but through words, and not just through words, but through letters, and not just through letters, but through the energy that dwells within each and every component and form that makes up a letter. It's not so dissimilar from what the mystics were saying about the power of the golem, right? That you can take unformed matter, and through proper spiritual elevation and cultivation and language, you can then create vitality, chiyut, within this unformed matter. The golem doesn't answer in this story, which means that according to these sages, the golem did not have the capacity for language. And then we can begin to consider whether or not that would constitute consciousness, and was this actually a conscious being? It was said to have been sent and had the locomotive power to be able to go from Rava to Rabbi Zera, but it had no capacity to speak.
Ich hab genommen meine ersten Trott nach ihnen. Hitz hat angehalten zu strahlen von Erd, und ich hab realisiert, als die Figur hat unklar geschint. Mit jedem Trott, was ich hab genommen, die golem Schein ist gewinn stärker, bis hat ausgeguckt, als ein groß Stück Heißkühn.
Could there be an intelligent and conscious being capable of mentality in a body that was not a natural biological body?
So I think there's nothing mystical or beyond our scientific and technological understanding going on between our ears. And if that is the case, as we look ahead year by year in our abilities to do things with computers, then artificial intelligence, just like artificial any other computing process, will be not only possible but perfected in the next couple of decades.
Computer intelligence is an intelligence that is only procedural. A computer knows how to do things, how to put certain factors together, because that's been programmed into it. A computer, a very sophisticated computer, may even learn from what it does. It will take the results of factors it has put together and now factor that into its next equation. But that's all the computer does.
Mobility and locomotion, robotics, those types of creations are very much possible. But the ability to create that capacity for language, which in many ways is the watermark of consciousness, that does not seem to be something that is spoken about as being fully possible. Or if it is, it's a secret that can't be shared.
Imagine that you fully understand the role of every individual neuron in the brain. The way in which that neuron picks up certain signals, which are partly electrical and partly chemical, and processes them and then transmits them to the next neuron. Now, suppose that you have a bunch of damaged neurons that you replace with bits of silicon that, just from the point of view of that chemical and electrical activity, do exactly what the neuron has been doing. It seems to me that just as you would expect that someone whose heart is replaced with an artificial plastic heart, providing that it does exactly the same thing, then the brain that now has this artificial